If I could erase one moment from my life, it would be that Sunday night when I hit send. Because nothing quite says you've ruined your entire friendship like accidentally confessing your libido your straight best friend. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was drafting a message meant for a dating app match, something flirty, something harmless. But somehow, between exhaustion and a glass of cheap wine, I ended up texting Eli, Alimi best friend since middle school. The guy who'd punched a bully for calling me a slur in 8th grade. The guy who spent every Christmas at my house after his parents split. The guy who smiled like he had sunlight behind his teeth. The message had read, I can't stop thinking about you. I think I've been in love with you for a long time. And he saw it. Read it. Left it on read. For 12 whole hours. By the time Monday morning came, I was sweating through my hoodie, trying to convince myself maybe he thought it was a joke, or a dare, or a typo. But when I walked into the cafe where we always met before work, Eli was already there waiting. Hands folded, coffee untouched. His gaze lifted, slow and heavy. So, he said, tone unreadable. You want to tell me about that text? My stomach dropped. The floor could have opened up right then, and I'd have thanked it. Eli wasn't just anyone. He was the kind of person who noticed things, the crack in your voice when you said you were fine, the way your hand trembled when you lied. And now every bit of me was trembling. "It was a mistake," I stammered. "I didn't mean to send it to you. It was for someone else." He stared at me for a long moment. "For someone else?" he repeated quietly, like tasting the words. Then his jaw clenched and he nodded. "Right?" And just like that, our friendship of 12 years began to splinter. That week felt like living underwater. Every interaction was strange, forced, careful. We'd still text about work or joke in our group chat, but everything in between was empty. The space between us grew loud with all the things we didn't say. Until one night when he showed up at my apartment door, soaked from the rain. "I'm not letting this ruin us," he said, voice sharp but eyes softer than I remembered. "But I need to know something, Nate." He stepped closer. I could feel his breath, warm and unsteady. Was it really a mistake? I froze. Every lie I'd rehearsed crumbled. Because looking at him, his hair dripping rain, his eyes searching mine, I couldn't say it. Not this time. So I whispered, "No." The silence that followed felt infinite. Then he said quietly, "I thought so." We didn't talk about it again, not that night, not for weeks. But something shifted. The air between us thickened, filled with things neither of us dared name. He'd brush my shoulder when we walked, linger a little too long when we hugged. Small, almost meaningless gestures that burned like wildfire inside me. But every time I got close to believing he might feel something too, he'd pull away. He'd flirt with girls at parties, talk about dates I never asked about, laugh with that same easy charm that once made me feel safe but now cut like glass. And I couldn't blame him, because what right did I have to hope? It all came crashing down one night at Eli's apartment, during his birthday party. Music thumped through the walls, people were laughing, drinking, living. And there I was stuck in the kitchen, pretending the punch bowl was the most fascinating thing in the world. Then I heard it. "I don't get why you're still single, Eli." A girl giggled from the couch. "You're like the perfect boyfriend material." Eli smiled. "Maybe I'm just waiting for the right person to stop lying to me." The words hit like a punch. I looked up. He was staring straight at me. Later, when everyone left, the silence between us was unbearable. Eli stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the city lights. "You really think I didn't know?" he said finally. "You've been in love with me for years, Nate. You just didn't want to admit it." I laughed, hollow. "And what? You wanted me to? You wanted your best friend to ruin everything because he couldn't keep his feelings to himself." "I wanted you to be honest," he shot back, "because I've been trying to figure out my own feelings, and you made me feel like an idiot for even." He stopped. The words hung there, trembling, unfinished. "For even what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Eli turned then, eyes stormy and uncertain. "For even wondering if I could love you too." The world went still. That was the night everything changed. Not in a movie-perfect way, not with a kiss under fairy lights, but in a way that hurt and healed all at once. We talked until dawn. About fears, about confusion, about what it meant to want something that could break us both. He admitted he didn't know what he felt, only that when I wasn't around, things felt off. That when he read my text that night, something in him shifted. And I, for once, stopped apologizing for wanting him. But love, I learned, isn't just confession, it's chaos. The following weeks were a mess of crossed lines and quiet moments that felt too much like promises. We tried pretending to be normal again, but normal didn't fit anymore. There were glances too long, touches too careful, laughter that cracked with hidden meanings. And somewhere between the confusion and the fear, we started orbiting closer. One Sunday afternoon, sitting in that same park where we'd first met as kids, Eli turned to me and said, "You ever think maybe this was supposed to happen?" I smiled, though my chest ached. "Sending that text?" He nodded. "Yeah. Like maybe you weren't the one who made a mistake." The sunlight caught in his eyes then, and something inside me dared to hope again. The thing about love, real loviest, that it doesn't announce itself. It slips in quietly, like light through blinds in the morning, and before you know it, everything looks different. That's how it felt after that night in the park. Nothing was officially said, no promises made, no sudden epiphany that we're together now. But there was something different, a softness, a warmth that hummed beneath every word we spoke. Eli would still text me the dumb memes he always did, still steal my fries, still tease me until I rolled my eyes, but his gaze lingered now. His laugh carried something fragile, something careful. And sometimes, when the world went quiet, I caught him looking at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle only I could finish. The first time he reached for my hand, we were watching a movie on my couch. Something old and black and white, something I'd picked because I thought he'd fall asleep halfway through. He didn't. We were both half reclined, a blanket tossed carelessly over our legs. His shoulder brushed mine accidentally at first. Then it didn't move away. A few minutes later I felt it, his fingers brushing against mine. Slow, uncertain. My heart thudded so loud I thought he might hear it. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just let the moment stretch, unbearable and electric, until finally, his hand slid fully into mine. His skin was warm, his palm calloused from years of basketball and carpentry work. He didn't look at me, didn't say a word, just kept watching the movie, his thumb tracing small, absent circles against my knuckle. I don't remember what happened in the movie. All I remember is thinking, if this is wrong, then I never want to be right again. But love, like always, didn't stay simple for long. The next week, rumors started. It began small. Someone from work saw us having lunch together, too close, too comfortable. Then another friend noticed how Eli looked at me at a bar one night. I overheard it in the office. "Are they? You know?" "No way. Eli's not like that. It shouldn't have mattered." But it did. Eli had always cared too much about what people thought, about keeping his world in balance. His dad was a cop, his family conservative, his high school friends still the same crowd that threw around gay as an insult. I could feel him start to pull back slowly, carefully, like someone afraid of burning his hands. One night I couldn't take it anymore. We were sitting in his truck after a late dinner. The air smelled like rain and fried chicken, the radio humming low in the background. "Are we gonna talk about it?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant. He glanced at me, then away. "Talk about what?" "About how you're pretending like that night never happened." His grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Nate, no, don't do that," I interrupted. "Don't act like I'm imagining things. You held my hand. You looked at me like I meant something. And now you can't even look me in the eye." His jaw clenched. "You don't get it. Then help me get it." Silence. The kind that stretches until it hurts. Finally, he said, "People are starting to talk. My dad heard something from one of his buddies. If he finds out." He trailed off, shaking his head. I swallowed hard. "So what? You're just gonna act like I don't exist?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying, Eli?" "That you're scared." He turned to me then, eyes raw, voice breaking. "Yeah, Nate, I'm scared. You think I've got this figured out? You think I know what it means to be—" He stopped himself. "To feel this way?" I stared at him, the words hitting harder than I expected. And suddenly I understood. He wasn't rejecting me, he was terrified. Terrified of what this meant, of what we meant. But fear, I realized, doesn't stop the truth from existing. It just hides it behind walls we pretend to need. For a while, we drifted. Some days he'd text like nothing was wrong, send me videos of his dog, ask if I wanted to grab coffee. Other days, he'd vanish completely, leaving me staring at my phone, wondering if I'd dreamed it all. I told myself I could handle it, that friendship was enough, that I could live with half of him if it meant keeping him in my life. But then came that night, the night everything broke. It was late, close to midnight, when I got a call from Eli's number. When I answered, it wasn't his voice. It was his mom. "Nate, can you come to the hospital? Eli got into a fight." My heart dropped. By the time I got there, he was sitting on a gurney, a split lip and bruised cheek, holding an ice pack to his face. "What the hell happened?" I demanded. He looked up, eyes tired. "Ran into Ryan and the guys at the bar. They said some things. I said some things back." "What kind of things?" He hesitated, then said, "They were talking about you." My chest tightened. "Eli, I told them to shut up. One of them pushed me." It just escalated. I sat beside him, trying to steady my breathing. "You could have been seriously hurt." He looked at me then, something fierce and unguarded in his expression. "I don't care. I'm done pretending. I'm done letting people make me ashamed of something that feels right." I blinked, stunned. "What are you saying?" He reached for my hand. "I'm saying I don't want to hide anymore." We left the hospital together, the city lights blurring through the car window. At a red light, he turned to me, eyes soft and uncertain. "Nate, when I read that text, I didn't answer because I was scared. I thought if I said something, I'd lose you." But not saying anything, he exhaled shakily. "I think that hurt worse." The light turned green. He didn't move. "You once said love is chaos," he murmured. "But maybe it's also the only thing that makes sense in the end." I couldn't think, could barely breathe. So I did the only thing that felt really reached for him. And this time, he didn't pull away. That kiss wasn't perfect. It wasn't soft or cinematic. It was messy, wet with tears, trembling with years of what-ifs and almosts. But it was honest. It was the kind of kiss that strips you bare, that says all the things words can't. When we finally pulled apart, he whispered, "You're shaking." I laughed weakly. "Yeah, no kidding." He smiled then, just a little. "So am I." After that night, things didn't magically fall into place. Love wasn't some fairy tale fix, it was work. It was learning to hold space for each other's fears. We talked a lot about his family, about coming out, about what it would mean to be seen together. He admitted he wasn't ready for everyone to know, not yet. But he wanted to try. For me. For us. And for the first time, I believed him. A few weeks later, he took me to the lake just outside town, the place we used to sneak off to as teenagers when the world felt too loud. It was quiet there, the water still, the air crisp with early fall. He threw a pebble into the lake, watching the ripples spread. "You ever think about how everything changes?" he asked. I nodded. "All the time. Guess I just never thought we would." I smiled faintly. "Change isn't always bad." He turned to me, a small, thoughtful smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, guess not." We sat in silence for a while, side by side, watching the reflection of the sky shift across the surface. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The next day, I found a note taped to my apartment door. Eli's handwriting. It said, "I told my dad." My stomach dropped. I called him immediately, voice shaking. "What happened?" He laughed, a shaky, nervous sound. "It wasn't great," he yelled. "Said some things I wish I could unhear. But you know what? I'm okay." "Are you sure?" "Yeah." His voice softened. Because for the first time, I didn't lie about who I am. Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. "Eli, come over," he asked quietly. When I got there, he was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, 2 mugs of coffee beside him. The moment I sat down, he reached for my hand. "I don't know what comes next," he said. "But whatever it is, I want you there." I squeezed his hand. "You don't have to figure it all out tonight." He smiled, leaning his head on my shoulder. "Maybe not, but tonight feels like a start." The stars stretched above us, quiet and endless. For so long, I'd thought love was something that broke you. But sitting there with him, our hands intertwined, hearts bruised but beating, I realized love didn't destroy. It rebuilt. Maybe we weren't perfect. Maybe we'd mess up again. But for once, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because sometimes, the best things in life start with a mistake you were never supposed to make. Autumn bled into winter, and everything between us settled into something both fragile and steady. Not a fairy tale, not the dizzying rush of a teenage crush, but something real. Something we were building brick by brick, mistake by mistake. After Eli came out to his dad, the fallout was hard. He tried to downplay it. Of course, Eli always tried to protect everyone but himself. But I saw it in the way his voice cracked when he talked about home, the way he smiled too tightly when I asked how things were. His dad stopped calling for a while. His sister, who'd always adored me, sent me a text saying, "Give him time. He's not used to change." But time didn't fix everything. Sometimes love isn't about waiting for people to change, it's about learning to live anyway. So that's what we did. We lived. It started small coffee dates where we sat too close in public, shoulders brushing like we were daring the world to look. Movie nights that turned into quiet mornings, his arm around me as sunlight crept through the blinds. Everyday things that somehow felt monumental because they were ours. There were still moments of fear, of course. The first time we held hands walking down Main Street, I swear I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. 2 men walking hand in hand in a small American town wasn't nothing. Heads turned. Car slowed. But Eli didn't let go. He squeezed my hand tighter, like a promise. Like he was saying, "I'm here. I choose this." And for the first time, I didn't feel small. The holidays came faster than I expected. Eli didn't go home that Christmas. Instead, he came with me to my mom's house, where the air always smelled like cinnamon and pine needles. My mom, who'd known me better than anyone, didn't say much when I told her about Eli and me. She just smiled, warm and tired, and said, "I was wondering when you'd figure that out." When Eli walked through the door, she hugged him like he'd been part of the family forever. That night, after dinner, when everyone had gone to bed, Eli and I sat by the fireplace. The flames flickered, shadows dancing across his face. "Your mom's something else," he said softly. "She likes you," I replied. "Probably more than she likes me." He chuckled. "Can't blame her." We fell quiet then, listening to the faint crackle of the fire. The air between us was heavy with words we hadn't yet said. Finally, Eli murmured, "You ever think about what comes next?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Like, the future. Us." The question hung in the air, both beautiful and terrifying. "I think about it all the time," I admitted. "But I don't want to rush it. I just want this right now." He nodded slowly, a small, content smile curling at the corner of his mouth. "Yeah, me too." He leaned in then, his lips soft and sure against mine, the firelight flickering between us like a heartbeat. For the first time in a long time, I felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. January brought change. Eli got promoted assistant manager at the construction company he'd been with for years. It was good news, except it came with relocation. 2 hours away. When he told me, I smiled because I wanted to be proud. But something in my chest cracked. "It's not forever," he said quickly, reading my face. "Just a few months. The pay's better, and it's a good move for my career." I nodded, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, of course. You should go." But that night, when I lay in bed alone, the emptiness of the thought hit harder than I expected. The distance tested us in quiet, painful ways. We called every night, texted through the day, sent stupid memes like before, but it wasn't the same. I missed the way he filled a room just by being in it, the way he always forgot his keys, the way he'd hum under his breath when he thought no one was listening. He came back on weekends when he could, and those 2 days felt like lifetimes squeezed into hours. But each time he left, it got harder. Once, after a particularly long week apart, I called him late too late. I didn't expect him to answer, but he did. "Nate?" His voice was thick with sleep. "I just wanted to hear you," I whispered. There was silence for a moment. Then, softly, he said, "I miss you too." That was all. But it was enough to keep me going. Then came the letter. It arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, handwritten, addressed to Eli, but delivered to my place. His dad's handwriting. I called Eli immediately. He went quiet for a long time after I told him. Then he said, "Can you open it?" I hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yeah. I don't think I can." The paper was rough, the ink slightly smudged. It wasn't long, just a few sentences. "Son, I've had a lot of time to think. I don't understand everything, but I don't want to lose you. Come home sometime. Bring Nate if you want. Love, Dad." I read it twice before I could speak. Eli's breath hitched through the phone. He said my name. "Yeah," I said softly. "And mine." He didn't speak for a while. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "I didn't think that would ever happen. We went that weekend." His dad met us at the door, older than I remembered, shoulders stooped with time and regret. He didn't say much, just nodded and stepped aside. Dinner was quiet but civil. No shouting, no tension, just awkward small talk and cautious smiles. At one point, his dad turned to me and said, "You take care of him, son." I nodded. "Always." Something softened in his expression then. A kind of peace that comes from finally letting go of old battles. When we left, Eli exhaled a laugh that was half sob, half relief. "I can't believe that just happened," he said, wiping his eyes. I smiled. "Guess people can change after all." He looked at me then, eyes shining in the fading light. "Maybe love's contagious." I laughed, shaking my head. "That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said." He grinned. "Yeah, but it's true." Months passed. Spring rolled around again, the world blooming back to life. Eli found a new job closer to home, and we moved in together, our first apartment. Small but perfect. There were fights about dishes, arguments about furniture, and laughter so deep it hurt. It wasn't always easy, but it was ours. One evening, I came home to find Eli on the balcony, looking out over the city. "Hey," I said softly, stepping beside him. He turned, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You ever think about how far we've come?" I laughed. "From an accidental text to this? Yeah, kind of wild." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. My breath caught. "I was gonna wait until your birthday," he said, opening it slowly. "But honestly, I can't anymore." Inside was a simple silver ring. Nothing fancy, just clean and real. He took my hand. "I don't care about labels or timelines or how this is supposed to go. I just know that I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. For as long as you'll let me." My throat closed up. "Eli," he smiled. "So, what do you say?" Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. I didn't need to think. "Yes," I said, voice trembling. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, and the world just stopped. The city lights blurred behind us, the air warm and alive. He kissed me slow, steady, sure, and for once, there was no fear, no hiding, no pretending, just us. Months later, we had a small ceremony by the same lake where we'd once talked about our future. Nothing fancy, just family, a few close friends, and sunlight filtering through the trees. When the officiant said, "You may kiss," Eli grinned, that boyish grin I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago, and whispered, "You ready for another mistake?" I laughed through my tears. "Always." And when he kissed me, the whole world seemed to hum. Later, as the sun dipped low and the guests drifted away, Eli and I sat on the dock, shoes off, feet dangling over the water. He leaned his head on my shoulder. "You know," he murmured, "if you hadn't sent that text," I smiled, finishing for him, "we'd still be idiots pretending we were just friends." He chuckled, quiet and soft. Best wrong text I ever got. We watched the ripples dance across the lake, golden and endless. And I realized, in that moment, love wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about getting everything right. It was about choosing every single day to show up, to try, to forgive, to stay. Even when you're scared. Even when you don't know how. Even when love starts with a mistake you never meant to make. Because sometimes the best stories aren't written perfectly. They're just lived. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.